So, hi, Joaria. We have 9 participants. Thank you very much for being here with us. If you want to introduce your project, please, quickly, and you can start.
Okay. All right. So I'll just start by, I mean, we can still like discuss our backgrounds as we are going around with our brainstorming session. So a quick introduction about myself. My name is Juwaria Siddiqui, and I am a doctoral candidate at Carleton University in Ottawa, Canada. But my fieldwork is based in the United Arab Emirates. So that's where I reside, and that's where I do all my fieldwork. And I'm just shuffling between 2 countries most of the time. So one cool thing about me is that I've had the lockdown. I was here for the lockdown when it was here in March. And then I went to Canada for visiting family. And then I met another lockdown there. So apart from that, about my research, I study the motivation of second language learners of Arabic. So when I say second language, I mean those who study Arabic not natively, because like their parents are not native speakers, but they learn it as a second, third language. Particularly, I'm looking at secondary school students in the United Arab Emirates, because by the ministry, it's stipulated that they need to learn Arabic. It's a mandatory course all the way from grade 1 to grade 9 or 10. And if they opt higher, they can do that. But that's the mandatory period. And a lot of these second language learners, and specifically non-native Arabic speakers, they learn Arabic for a long duration, and still they do not attain like a basic proficiency, I would say. They write exams, they write higher grade exams, but once they're done with school, you see a really like low proficiency. And that's what got me interested in learning what are the different, because not everybody has the same kind of motivation to take on with it in university or higher. Even though we are in an Arab country, we have lots of Arabic speakers, there's a religious factor, and look, so many things. So that's what got me really curious to learn about the different, I would say, behaviors of non-native Arabic speakers. So the pedagogy part that we will be exploring today, and you will be helping me on that, is really like based on your observation. There's no right or wrong answers. Based on your observation, what are the kind of learning behaviors you have seen in Arabic learners, non-native Arabic learners around the world? Because from my research, what I'm looking at is looking at motivation not as something that is there or not there, like a static thing. No, I'm looking at it as a dynamic system. So when I say dynamic, I mean a system that can, where obviously we expect, like at some points, like maybe say the time there's Ramadan, maybe your motivation to study Arabic is really high, or at the time of exams, maybe your motivation is really low. So it is fluctuating, but I'm not doing the second by second fluctuation. That's not what I'm studying, but more like these are secondary school students. And these are the different types that I see in a classroom. So as an educator, as a teacher, what kind of interventions can I bring into the curriculum, into the classroom, so I can improve their attitude towards Arabic and moving forward. And how I do that is by tracing their development right from the time. So what we will be doing today in simple terms is focus, like looking at these different behaviors to see these are the styles that are present and how can they go back to the different, like, what should I say? They have all been exposed to Arabic at some point in their lives. And so how can we trace that? So that's the idea. And it might still sound, I mean, I'm just trying to like go ahead by giving you a lot of information really quick, but I will be doing that. And towards the end of this, the session, what I will do is give a few tips on what I have personally worked with non-native learners in Arabic, and I have a venture where I design programs for non-native speakers. I'm not fluent in Arabic. I'm still, I would say, as an intermediate learner, a big intermediate student and a teacher. But based on that, I have applied my understanding, because I have learned English too as a second language. And from what I borrow, I was able to incorporate certain elements online, and I can share that as to how I saw that phenomenal increase in their engagement through the different things that we did in the online classrooms. So that will be towards the end of the workshop. So I will quickly share my screen, and give me 1 second. Okay, just to, okay, yeah, here it is. So that's about me. So this is a quick outline of what you will be looking at today is so the consent forms, that's the one that I've shared in the chat box. If you haven't done so, go ahead and just agree, disagree to the data that we will be generating. The first task will be, and together as a group, we will be brainstorming the different types of motivational styles we have seen specifically in second language Arabic learners anywhere in the world. It doesn't have to be the Middle East, anywhere. And then the second task will be where you will fill these prompts where you can describe the kind of learner that you have come across, have observed, maybe have your children like that, etc. in detail. And then we will discuss this as a group and towards the conclusion. So yeah, so the first thing, and I would like you all to take a minute, the first task is think about a particular or a couple of second language learners that you have taught that you maybe found really impressive, or maybe that they just were not motivated, like whatever styles you can think of. I'll give you a minute and I would like you to maybe just jot down one or two types that you think of. So when I say types, I just mean like you could just write down one which was really highly motivated. Like you can just put it in your own words, but I would just want you to think about that for a few seconds. Okay, so let's hear from anybody. Like it's an open stage. So what do you have? What kind of learning behaviors have you seen that have puzzled you or that have amazed you? Anything?
And for this workshop, you can actually open your cameras if you want. Okay. If you are happy to do so.
Yeah. Yeah. So let's start. Abla, would you like to go first? Maybe just to get warmed up a little bit.
Yeah. I mean, the kind of students, the kind of motivation my students, or at least some of my students have to learn Arabic is basically to get jobs in the Middle East. So they think that by learning Arabic, it would be easier for them to get jobs in the Middle East. And those students are like two types. Some of them want to get jobs like in the Gulf, where they get, they're thinking money-wise. And other students actually interested in humanitarian work. So they want to work in NGOs in the Levant or Lebanon or Palestine.
Right.
Both groups want to learn Arabic. So these are the types that I have, yeah.
So it's very I mean, I know there's like this whole idea of what extrinsic and intrinsic, but I think just bringing these two categories of like job related, right? Like that's the incentive, and that's that's the kind of learners that you have seen. Go ahead, Jamila.
So I will maybe add the mainstream, as Ustad Abla mentioned. Well, I think you have to consider the context also for this question. I'm teaching Americans. I'm teaching an American college in New Hampshire, New England. From the data, you know, every year I ask that question first day of classes. What is your main motivation for taking my class? So the first maybe question that the first answer is finding a job, as Ustad Abla mentioned. So employability, basically getting a language training to get a job. And just to give you some ideas about jobs, mainly they study government as a major, economy as a major, and they need a language. So they need that language to help them, you know, work in government, either overseas or in embassies, or and mainly Middle East and North Africa. So we have government jobs, we have Secret Service, we have Foreign Affairs, we have lawyers. I have so many students who do lawyers, and also pre-med. We have pre-med, means they study medicine and they take Arabic as a minor or a major. to help them basically get a job in the Middle East or North Africa.
Right.
And then maybe in the bottom sometimes like, well, I'm just curious about this language. I heard a lot of, things, whether it's true or not, and I'm trying to learn this language. So, but basically for job reasons, yeah, so that's the main incentive basically. But just it's very important also when you're asking this question, Ustada Jawahiriya, is like, what context? I think Europe is different. Maybe we don't have so many students of heritage in my university. So mostly Americans. Maybe I have one or two in my class of 20 or 22. I'm talking beginner level. So so typically, the majority of Americans, yeah.
Right. Yeah, no, I think context is important because the first part of what I'm studying is specifically the United Arab Emirates. So in Dubai and Sharjah and Ras Al Khaimah, like these kind of places. And so what right now what I'm doing, and you'll see it in the next slide, is just getting a general consensus of, okay, we can say that there are infinite number of types of learning styles, or you can say there's just like 2 types, right? But then within a complexity perspective, what I'm looking at is, even when you say, like, see what Sister Abla said, and if I combine that with your idea of incentive, that can still be grouped under one category, right? And you will still find learners in the United Arab Emirates who will also fall in that, right? Because we are looking at just Arabic, and I don't want to look at like a lot of different issues in Arabic, but particularly their learners' motivation and what incentivizes them, what demotivates them. Because the real issue here is that these are children who are studying Arabic in an Arab country. And even till secondary school, and I'm talking about like 15, 16-year-olds who are applying for university, and they don't see any reason why they should continue learning Arabic.
Well, I might stop you here. This is for me is very crucial to your topic, to your research. So you are looking at Emirati students or maybe different nationalities who live
non-native Arabic.
Non-native. Yes. Who are learning Arabic maybe not as a second or foreign language. Maybe some of them are Emiratis. I don't know. I mean, I don't know. And then you're comparing this question in different context, which is going to be like in my case here in the States, in my college, they're studying Arabic as a second language or as a foreign language for some of them who have. I mean, there's a difference. So, so maybe the incentives are I mean, the context again, they're going to be different. I don't know. Just I'm trying to understand your question and also the context of your research. So these are not Emirati, non-native Emirati. Some of them are Emiratis as well, maybe in your classes, taking it as a second, taking it maybe as a subject?
No, so what I'm looking at is non-native speakers who do not have a heritage background, in terms of they don't have Arab parents, or they don't speak Arabic at home. So non-native
thank you.
Arabic
That's
speakers.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and they either have like other first languages, or they speak English as the first language, even though their parents might speak say Urdu or Tamil or Talagang, right? But they essentially speak only English, right? So it's the demographic is a little different. Go ahead, Mr. Islam.
السلام عليكم. اسمي إسلام يسري، منسق الاختبارات في جامعة السلطان محمد الفاتح في تركيا، وأعمل في هذا المجال من عام 96. معي ماجستير ودكتوراه في هذا المجال، ودرست في عدة دول. يعني أعتقد أن أقوى دوافع رأيتها في تجربتي الشخصية هي الدوافع الغرضية. يعني الطالب الذي يتعلم لهدف معين وليس مجرد مادة في برنامج دراسي. وكانت أقوى الدوافع الغرضية التي قابلتها هي الدوافع الدينية، ليس لكل الطلاب لكن لبعض الطلاب. ليس كل من يتعلم العربية للدين يكون جادا في عملية التعلم، لكن الجاد من هؤلاء يعتبر ذي دافعية أكبر من غيره. يعني بعض الطلاب كان يأتي للقاهرة يدرس سنة سنتين لغة عربية فقط من أجل أن يبدأ الدراسات الإسلامية. عندنا في تركيا أيضا طلاب مقبلون جدا على تعلم العربية. تليها الدوافع المرتبطة ببرامج التطوير المهني، يعني بمعنى شركة كنت أدرس في الخطوط الجوية الماليزية وكان الطلاب يعني هناك علاوة أو هناك زيادة في الراتب في حالة النجاح في الدورة. فكان أغلب المضيفين الجويين يهتمون بهذه الدورة لمجرد أن هناك مكافأة مرتبطة بعملية النجاح. الأمر الثالث هم الطلاب المرتبطين بالدراسات العليا. بعض الطلاب في الولايات المتحدة يشترط أن يتعلم العربية كمتطلب للالتحاق بالبرامج المتعلقة بالعالم العربي والإسلامي أو الدراسات الإسلامية، فكان هذا النوع الثالث. يأتي بعد ذلك الباحثون عن العمل الذي لديه مقابلة عمل ويحتاج إلى تعلم لغة. ثم تأتي بعد ذلك بقية الأهداف، يعني أحيانا تكون قوية وأحيانا تكون ضعيفة. شكرا.
شكرا، جزاك الله خير. Yeah, so I am able to understand a lot of that, but then Abla, would you like to help me a little bit with the translation?
I'm sorry, I expect you to understand me.
I'll be happy to translate. Go ahead.
Islam, do you want to say this in English or shall I actually translate?
You can translate.
Okay. So mainly the main purpose for students coming to Islam's classes in Turkey is basically religious, yes, and then career development, and what was the other thing? Islam غير التطوير المهني.
الدراسات العليا ثم البحث عن وظيفة.
Okay, education and then looking for a job.
Right. Yeah. Okay. I got that. Yeah. Okay. All right. Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Islam.
I'm so sorry.
No. This is a part of me also growing in the language. So, all right. So Najla, she says that it is hard for me to answer this because I have been teaching all ages in different centers, another center for study. Yeah. So like you have come across different groups, right? So and that was also a part of teaching different. The kind of learners you come across. There's not one particular one that you would say is really standing out either. So what I would like to do now is just show you, because I have done a small, like brainstorming session with a few educators in the UAE last week, and this is the kind of grouping that they, and don't take the label for what it is. I mean, that's just a rough thing for what the idea that I derived, and obviously it's just to explain. So the first one is the kind of student that they explain where there's no religious affiliation, they don't have any inclination towards, they don't live in the Middle East, they just want to study Arabic because they're amazed by the language. So they've seen a lot of students like this who are just like, they might be Russian, no job incentive, none of these, but they just think Arabic is such a beautiful language, and this would really help them. And that's what drives them, and that's their motivation mainly driven by. The other group, and maybe there are a couple of other like branches in this, and that's what we want to look at, and maybe what you have explained, Dr. Islam and Jamila, about how, not Jamila, I think Dr. Islam had mentioned that like in Turkey, they are religiously, they come mainly for religion, for research, etc. And at the end of the day, it's the religion that's driving what they want to achieve in the language. So if they can't speak, and this is what happens here in the Middle East, is that a lot of them are okay with classical Arabic. So even if we don't speak so much, as long as we can decode, do the grammar, we are fine. And that's our motivation. The other group that came across, and this is again, as I said, these are educators, teachers in the United Arab Emirates who have come across these kind of students. They say are those who are always complaining, or I would say like blaming like the school, the structure, the curriculum. They just think that all of that needs to change, and then they would be a lot more successful in becoming proficient in the Arabic language. So that's another type. Another one is the Arabic newbie, and this is specifically referring to secondary students who get into university, and maybe they are like they kind of had some background in Arabic, but then so the Arabic newbie are the ones who have no background in Arabic whatsoever until they reach university level, and then that's where they start taking electives in Arabic, and then they feel like they can really go for this and get ahead in it because they don't have any background in reading or writing for any reason, be it educational, religious, etc. That's another group that is very common in universities here that the educators refer to. Another group was the overachiever, which is a group which is always like, when you look at them, you think, okay, nothing is ever hard for them. They can just go ahead with whatever tasks they're given, particularly in the Arabic language. They seem to overcome the challenges. For them, everything is easygoing. They excel in their academic, speaking, writing, whatever. And they just want to be the best in the language. So these are the different kinds. Not to say that this is the only thing, because as Ms. Avla mentioned, that there's a category that is job oriented, right? And Jamila also put that into perspective, different types of employments, etc. And that is what incentivizes them to learn the language. So that probably is like another category, and that's what we are doing here in this brainstorming session, is just getting to see, are there other types that we are motivated by? And what I'm doing here is, these are what the UAE educators have come across. And now when I'm comparing this data with educators across the world, and seeing, because what we are looking at is not how different their motivational needs are, what really, these are all non-native speakers and they have different reasons. They start off at different places. Some of them learn reading and writing very early on. Some of them learn everything as a newbie, as a newcomer at a university level, and some do it mandatory in school and they hate it. So like there are different things that are going on, and all these interconnections might be really messy, but I'm trying to study them in a more structured way to see how can we make, like, we can't intervene everywhere. Like, we can't say, oh no, early education in Arabic also needs to be done. Online education, I mean, that's a lot of other things, but just taking the non-native child, like that learner at the core, and seeing this is their motivation style, how have they got here? So these are the outcomes. And this is now, from this point, I trace back to is there a different way that this overachiever started off as compared to, say, the one who blames the school, as compared to the one who's religiously motivated, right? Or have they all started off at the same place, where in school, right? Like, that's where their early exposure to the language. And then as they moved on, what was the next phase? Like when they faced challenges, what was their coping mechanism? Like, what made the same kind of like children growing up in this environment pretty much having the same kind of beginner, like what we call in complexity as the attractor states, the phase where you get exposed to the language, and then over time, some of them start receding back. So no matter what happens, they keep going back to that attractor state, which says, oh, you know what, just read the language and you're fine. Whereas there are some that move beyond that and say, you know what, no, I want to be able to like speak it and be more fluent, integrate, etc. So what do you like? I know it's a really short duration for me to like explain all of my PhD work and what I'm trying to do in a short workshop, but I think like, and it's hard as well for you to understand the whole picture, but somewhere along, this is the idea that I wanted to bring across. And I see that a few of you have shared, and I'll just wait. Some of the participants have raised their hand, so let's continue. And give me 1 second. So that let's talk about the other types. So who's got Jamila? Would you like to add something?
No, I think you were asking a question. There are different reasons for them coming to learn Arabic in your class.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it helps me as a teacher, as a professor in my class, to know the incentive, right. And encourage them. That's great. Either like for religious reason, from heritage student, maybe he want to learn Quran, he want to learn about his culture, his religion, or planning to be a Fulbright scholar and he needs a language requirement, or working overseas. that's good for me to know. But at the end of the day, all of them in my class come in to learn. And my job is to teach them and help them learn this language. Of course, you mentioned something, the different learning styles and other factors, but at the end of the day, they are all in your class to learn. So, I mean, it's I don't know, that's your research. You're trying to look into different factors, why they are, you know, why they, different categories of students, whatever reason they want to learn the language. But at the end of the day, your job is to keep them interested in the language, learn, and be proficient. So, and also we have as professors, I don't know, my colleagues here in the workshop, they may agree, we have something also retaining the students as well. So, you know how universities and budget are all based in enrollments, right? So, well, Chinese language is well enrolled, Arabic language well enrolled. So also that determines the budget, right? So there is also a pressure on us to retain the students. And in my career, just like in Arabic 1, because we have Arabic 1 and 2 and 3, like in Dartmouth College, just first year students, and I have to make effort to retain them, to get them staying with the language and move on to the other level. Yeah, so the end of the day, as I said, is they are there. Yes, I respect whatever reason they want to learn, but my job is to get them learn the language.
Yes. Yeah, and see, and I completely agree with you on this. And like, at least when you're saying about like, say, university students, they still come into and like they choose Arabic, right? So they have some kind of reason to choose. Maybe it's an easy course, so they just want to be able to get good grades, or like you said, some kind of incentive. What happens with secondary school students is that by the time a lot of them reach that age of like that grade 8 to 10, they've already decided that they don't like that language. And because of that, if you talk to university student, like professors here, they're, for the number of children, right? Everybody here is supposed to study Arabic. The ones that study from school to university, there's a huge dropout rate, if I can call it a dropout. Like, given that students studied for 9 years, you would expect a lot more students, right? And then you talk to people who are like working, and this is not, again, this is not based on research. This is just based on my general observation, talking to people who are in the workforce, and they say, "Oh, I wish I had paid more attention. I wish I was like, you know, I was taught communication and presentation skills and not just grammar." So, yeah. So you see, like.
I don't want to monopolize the discussion, but you are mentioning a very important key here in what you just said. What they teach in their curriculum in the Arab United Emirates, that for me, it's focal. I need to have a look into that. I mean, there is a big drop-in number. Okay, I need to look at the curriculum. What do they teach them? I mean, it's only like very traditional, you know, way of teaching al-qawa'id, grammar and focus, no conversation, no, you know, building the oral proficiency, and also, you know, teaching Arabic based on functions and all of that. So I think this is central to your question. I think it's all related. The incentive,
it's all related. Yes.
But like, you have to look into the curriculum, and also you have, if you are comparing non-native studying Arabic in Arab United Emirates, let's say to the United States or to England, you have to look at our curriculum as well. You have to look at what we teach, and also, you know, what we teach our students, you know, serving them, of course, you know, later in their language proficiency. So I think it's all related. Again, I don't want to monopolize the discussion, please.
No, thank you for that. But I see, like, these are all issues. And for me as a researcher, when I started like looking at this thing, and I'm like you said, as a professor, as an instructor, you think that curriculum, right? Like, that's the one point. And I have been instructors who say, oh, curriculum. Then I meet parents who say, oh no, you know, the way the child is like engaged in class. So different people say like different things that need to be worked upon. And so for me, when I designed the research, I said, I cannot look at all of these things, but what I want to look at is really the learner. And the social environment around them. So that's why I'm focusing only on non-native speakers in an environment where one would think, oh, it's United Arab Emirates, right? They should be able to speak Arabic, or they should be able to want to speak Arabic at least, right? But that doesn't happen. So that is what I'm coming at, and not so much how can I intervene immediately, because that becomes a very different strand of discussion, right? Yeah. Who else would like to add?
Yeah, it's me, Sadia.
Okay.
Let me put my video on so you can see me.
Yeah.
It's not interact with the human. Well, I just want to add something, because I think you're highlighting important issues here. Currently, I teach on different programs at the university. So we've got something called elective program, and then we've got undergrad, and then we've got postgrad. For the elective program, what I've seen is that, well, students come to you at the beginning of the year and they say, all right, we are really fascinated by the Arabic language. So it comes towards Christmas time, where they start to have deadlines. So the dropout mainly comes from their workload, and then we can't cope and catch up with what we're doing. So I start up with 37 in my class, and then I end up with 15 towards the end of the year. And this is something that we've been discussing with the school, because I work in the School of Language. But we couldn't find we couldn't find really a straight solution for this, because students started really very motivated, and after that they didn't have really enough time, so they can just flourish, understand the language, and then although they really they get into speaking the language, and then some of them they carry on, not all of them drop out. So I've got a student, he finished his intermediate, he went to the advanced, and now he's working for the Metropolitan Police in London. He's doing a great job. So, and he's doing his best to speak in conversation, trying to speak the dialects as well. So it's these things that we need to take into consideration.
Right. Yeah. So exactly. Yeah. So what we are trying to, like, my research with, and what, it's a really small effort, and like what all of you are doing is like really good and like important stuff, right? Like getting them, making sure they don't drop out, making sure you have like a high interest, all of that. So like right now, what Ms. Sadia mentioned, that's exactly what I'm working on, is so that student who went ahead, we don't really worry about those students. There will always be a few of those, right? Those overachievers who will succeed. But then this percentage that drops out, is there a way, I mean, apart from the academic style of like understanding, maybe decrease the workload, over the top, or make sure the content is more engaging, etc., sorry. How else can we like make sure, what is the learner coming in? Sorry, give me a second. When they come in, I have joined courses where initially when I was looking for classical Arabic, and later on as I moved and I said, no, I want to speak more communication skills, but then I keep joining courses where the focus is still classical Arabic, and I drop out, right? So knowing, not just like when I say learning style, it's not just style, it's what is the thing that they are looking for as a learner. What is the kind of experience they are looking to get from that classroom experience? It's not just classical, and it's not just incentive. There are so many other things. And if as teachers, and it could just be, I don't know how this end of my research would be, just a questionnaire or something which will help teachers just know the proportion, right, in a classroom. And I'm talking about secondary school students, where that a lot of them have come from backgrounds where they've just been reading and writing the language. I have been one of those, right? Like I was taught how to read and write Arabic from the age of 6, but I only started speaking when I would like frankly say 15 or 16. So when Arabic curriculums are designed for non-natives, it's just under the label of non-natives. But what happens to this sector, which actually reads and writes, so their reading and writing level is much higher than their speaking, and they're still looking for speaking courses. So just like, I mean, there are like lots of things that we can go on with, but that's why the focus is just on the speaker by himself. Mr. Islam, would you like to add something? I see your hand raised. No, I don't know if you can hear me.
No, I didn't raise my hand. Maybe
okay, I think it just didn't.
The old one.
Okay, all right. Who else would like to, like maybe some other learning styles or particular types of like Arabic learners that you've come across, their motivation or, okay, so, oh my God, it's already 47. So I'll quickly, I don't even know how time passed by. Okay, so I will now share the prompt link actually. Give me a second, right. So this is the task 2 where, first let me share the link. So what you will be doing here is, so we've spoken about different kinds, and I want you to choose one particular style that we have looked at, or another one that you strongly think of or feel is important for us to know. And I want you to fill out this, give me one second, I can't really multitask. Oops, did I share the wrong? Oh, sorry, I think I shared the wrong consent form. So whoever clicked on the consent form here, please excuse me. So this is the template for the prompt. Where is it here? Okay. So I would like you to go onto this link, and I will just in a second tell you what it will be about. Okay. So I would like I said, think of a student or an individual who seems to have this ability to learn Arabic when faced with difficulties, or does not seem to have the ability. Like it's up to you, the kind of student you choose. So say, for example, the example I've given here is of an overachiever, for example, and they experienced and functioned effectively in the classroom without being vulnerable to problems, almost like they were immune to stress. Like that's how it seemed like to you. So what I would like you to do is describe these kind of language learners. So if you see on your form there, and again, this is your opinion, right? Like, what do these language learners think? It's not about teaching. I don't know why we're teaching, about learning. That should be learning. Sorry about that. So
it doesn't let me choose more than one. Do we have to choose only one option?
Yeah, I think it just lets you
click on more than one. It won't let me.
Right. So what you can do then is, because I think it just like lets you put in one.
Yeah, lets you, because there are various reasons why they are learning Arabic. So they are amazed by Arabic. They are religiously motivated, because you've got different ethnic minorities that are coming. They are coming from madrasa. Yeah. So how do I include more than one?
So what you can do, and I'm trying to think.
Write it down.
Sorry?
Write it down towards in the square box.
Yeah, so like maybe start with one, and once you submit it, and then I can share like a box for you.
That way. Thanks.
Yeah. Sorry, I think I shared a wrong consent form link initially. I'm just going to share the consent if in case anybody has not filled the consent form for the study. So I'll just put that up here as well. So that's the second link is for the consent form, and the first one is the prompt template. And I will open that template just so that you know what it looks like. And you can choose just one type. If Sadia, you want to choose another one, that's okay. But what I'm really looking at is because just to get a cumulative understanding, if you have seen or observed any of these, if it's another style, you can just feel free to press another style, and then just based on your opinion, what do you think these language learners feel? How do they see themselves, etc. And this can be like really short, like a sentence or something. It doesn't have to be really long. So I'll just give you 3 more minutes. So then we can just close. Okay.
So Jawariya will be leaving this room in less than 10 minutes.
Okay, sure, no problem. Yeah. So I'm just going to give you another minute or so for those who want to fill up the form template. Yeah.
Thank you.
So if you're able to access, just give me a thumbs up so that I know that you were able to open the prompt, because I'm not able to check it on the, like, it doesn't really show me if the, yes, okay, thank you. Thank you, Najla. Okay, so while a few of you are just completing it, what I would like to do is, on this note, just bring in the last part of the engagement. And I think this was discussed even yesterday towards the end on, like, specifically for Arabic learners. And as a learner as well as a teacher, I would say that when we are talking about motivation, so I work very closely with second language learners, and my entire project is based on bringing the learner at the center. And so it's not the assessment or the teacher that tells us that the learner is doing well, but the learner himself or herself says, yes, this is what I want. This is what is actually helping me with the language. So now, again, bringing in that, again, social construction, where the learner themselves identify the kind of experience they want to build around themselves. What I did is I brought in an engagement model. So I wanted to share that with you in the last few minutes, like a really quick rundown on that. Because this is still work in progress, because I have developed courses based on that, on how to improve the online engagement. So adopting an engagement model looks something like this, where you have a context, maybe any authentic material that you use in your language classroom, be it advertisement, newspapers, poems, etc. And and I know a lot of you, maybe at least at the university level, do this kind of support where you bring in scaffolding material where the child or the student is able to extract from that authentic text to follow the instructions. So it acts a kind of like, instead of just saying, oh, this is the task, you give them a bridging option where they are able to transfer that understanding to the activity through some kind of scaffolding material. So what I did with my learners, and this is what I suggested, was, so if I have a newspaper and I say, oh, you know what, just discuss with your friends what are the main ideas in this text. Instead of just doing that, the scaffold would be something like this, which looks like a graphic organizer. And this is a lot which gets used even for English as a second language. And this is another very example from a storybook. So if I'm using children's storybooks or literature, Arabic literature, as an example of an authentic text, then instead of telling the child, okay, try to understand or give them comprehension questions, I use a scaffold like this, which helps them break down the ideas. And again, I don't know, a lot of you are at a university level, so this might be really simple, but this can be applied at an intermediate level as well for your learners. Now, the part that I wanted to mention here is that when we are looking at this engagement model, as a professional or as an educator, we are trying to squeeze in all of these things at the same time. So we might be giving the context, the process, we are asking them to do the process and support within that live instruction time. And a lot of times that makes it hard for the student to absorb that entire process and stay engaged with everything. Because in a live classroom, it's a different thing, because you have a teacher who can support you and who acts automatically as that scaffold, right? But in an online environment, and a lot of Arabic classrooms that I have observed and I have spoken to parents, they say that we are not able to help the child at home, and we don't really know what the teacher wants. So I think increasing engagement by providing the scaffold in the live interaction and letting the child navigate through the process towards the end would be one. Okay, so right. So that would be one way of increasing engagement in the classroom. So now when I applied this, I tried to use scaffolding materials, and then the next question was, okay, I've used these materials, but now how do I measure engagement? Because that's the next question, that, okay, my child, I feel like my student is engaged, but how do I measure that? Now, engagement is broadly seen as a cognitive, behavioral, and emotional conglomerate, right? That these are the things that we're looking for. How is the child behaving? How connected are they with the content, and how are they performing? But recently, and this is the next component that has been added on to engagement, is that the agentic component. Again, bringing in, when we say agentic, it refers to, again, the students' intentional, proactive contribution to what's happening in the classroom. And that is really tricky to measure in an online environment, but that is what we are aiming for. And again, bringing the student, making the student agentic would mean that you equip them enough in an online environment so that when the live instruction time is done, they are able to continue the process by themselves at home. Instead of expecting that engagement in the class, the engagement can happen after class. But the scaffolding is what happens during the class. So a quick example of that was that, okay, so now maybe I'll skip this part, but you can, I don't know if this seems a bit overwhelming, but, and again, it's very intertwined, motivation and engagement. And this is how I try to derive that idea, where I'm not only including the cognitive, behavioral, and emotional components of engagement, but also the agentic components. And that in a way leads to an increase in the quality of student engagement overall. So this was just a small thing that I wanted to share with you in terms of when you think of engagement, not just, oh, is my student engaged? Because a lot of teachers are like, is my student engaged? Yes, but then how are you measuring that engagement? Is it based on how often they respond to you online, or is it based on the quality of their submissions or whatever they do afterwards? And in a live classroom, we expect that right there, like in person, but in an online setting, that can happen later. And giving them that agency and equipping them with enough so that they can carry on is what we should be looking at, instead of trying to get the most out of them responding right there. So those are just a few things based on online engagement. I think we have I don't know how much time we have, but if anybody has any last few comments, please go ahead. And thank you for attending the workshop today. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Jawariya. We have like 2 minutes if anyone wants to comment on anything or ask you anything. Or even stay with you here in the workshop, probably.
Yeah, or you're free to, you can exit. And so we joined the main session now? Is that what it is? Yes,
we now have a link to go back to the main session if you are interested.
Oh, right.
So
yeah.
Go back for the quiz session now in 1 minute. Okay. I think it's in the chat. Roba has shared the link for the main session.
Right. Yeah.
So whoever is interested can go back to the main session, or basically if you want to stay and connect with Jawariya privately, that's fine as well. Okay. Thank you so much, Jawariya. Thank you all. I will see you all in the main session to go for the quiz. See you there.
Thank you. Bye.